Okay, welcome back from your break. So let's dive right in here. I want to tell you about a student who came to me with a drawing where he felt like he had done everything that we'd talked about doing, and yet the drawing was still weak. And what we did to solve the problem. So I had a student come to me with a drawing. This is the drawing. He was kind of upset. He said, I tried to do everything we've been talking about. I was really careful with my construction drawing. I tried to be very organized in the grouping of the value of my shadow. I tried to get, atmospheric light here and bounce light underneath and do all the things you said, but it's a weak drawing. I don't like it. I'm not happy with how it came out. What gives? So I took it and I did this draw over for him, showing him how what he had just did not have the value range necessary to sculpt form. So you see now, even though she's a fairly light-skinned model, with this bright, direct kind of chiaroscuro style lighting, the shadow group's quite dark and gives us a wide range of value to sculpt in the light as well. So, as expected, we go into highlight, halftone, core shadow, and then this form faces up in the shadow, so we get some atmospheric light in there, but then the form turns underneath, so it gets a little darker, but then it turns into an underplane, and now we get that bounce light underneath. We have some occlusions. There's a little bit of a deeper recess in here, back here, some occlusions that go a little bit darker. And then we have the cast shadow, and the cast shadow gets a little lighter over here because we have some atmospheric light coming down that doesn't get in here and in here, but it does get over there, okay? So we are rendering form in light and in shadow with highlight, halftone, core shadow, atmospheric light, reflected light, darker occlusions, and cast shadows. And if we do our simplification, our noise reduction filter, you can really see the massing and grouping of those values and how it can give a real strength and potentially give some real guts. So let's be fair on this. Let's go back and look at the original drawing and do that same noise reduction filter to make a reasonable comparison. There are ideas that are headed in the right direction here. Now, the student could have reasonably come to me with a concern about my paint over. He could have said, well, Nathan, when I was drawing this model from life, it really was a very bright environment. There was a light backdrop. There really was tons of bounce light in the environment, tons of light bouncing into the shadow. You like to do this kind of push the contrast of the light and shadow, the drama, all of that. That seems to be your thing, Mr. Fawkes, but that's not me. That's not what I want to do. It's not what I was interested in doing in this drawing. So what gives? So let's address that. So let's take this and let's push it into that more brightly lit, higher key environment. And so it would go something like this. So I do this to point out to you that it still will work. The reason it still works is because the relationships are still in place. They've shifted, they've all shifted lighter, but the relationship between the lights and the darks still stand. And keep in mind, it doesn't mean you have to completely lose your value structure to go high key. This is a very light skin model with quite dark hair. That dark hair, that local value, especially with the nature of the way hair reflects or doesn't reflect, absorbs light, is going to stay quite dark, especially in the shadows. Okay, hope that's helpful for you. I always want to say to you guys, I get really concerned. Sometimes students will say, well, Nathan Fawkes said that you must always give the light and the shadow contrast. You must always do this, you must always do that. And if I ever put it that way, my bad. I should never use the term always. I should just give principles that are applied selectively, appropriately, and with artistry. So in this image, clearly it's primarily in shadow. And so you can see that simple top light coming down, illuminating a little bit the facing up planes and then wrapping around. And this is done on toned paper. We are specifically going to address the idea of using chalk for highlights and tone paper to bring a little bit of a ground to our image, but we're going to be doing that in a future week. So as I go through these examples, I do have a couple of this particular technique, and rest assured we'll have an opportunity to take a closer look at that technique in upcoming weeks. For now, we're just looking at rendering shadow with atmospheric light and reflected light. So another one, our favorite model here, once again, primarily in shadow, and you can see this idea of the light primarily coming down from above, illuminating the facing up planes here and the facing up planes, and then a little bit of reflected light, coming in here and coming in, hitting over here and under the ear and so forth. So I'll just scroll through these and you can take a look at how the shadows are worked out, because that is a face entirely in shadow. If you don't mind me saying so, I think the forms read pretty well. I think it's reasonably clear. And it's because of that atmospheric light and reflected light. Another one, the face is 100% in shadow.